The unregistered vessel Admiral This Velkorin stood on the command deck of the mighty dreadnought Sovereign's Wrath, watching the tactical display with growing satisfaction. Before him stretched the largest military formation the Draknari Empire had assembled in 3 centuries. 412 warships, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering, hung in perfect formation against the star-filled void. Cruisers the size of mountains, destroyers bristling with plasma cannons, and fighter squadrons that could darken entire solar systems. The Admiral's scaled skin gleamed under the bridge lights as he folded his forearms behind his back. His species had ruled this sector of space for over 5,000 years. They had conquered 17 different civilizations and absorbed their technologies. The Draknari were apex predators of the galaxy, and today they would prove it once again. "Status report," Velkorin commanded, his voice a deep rumble that carried the authority of absolute power. Commander Zephyr, his second-in-command, approached with a data pad in her clawed hands. She was younger than the Admiral, her purple scales still bright with youth, but her tactical mind was sharp as any blade. "Admiral, all battle groups report ready for engagement. Long-range sensors show the human colony ships approximately 6 hours out from the Kepler Junction. They're traveling in a standard merchant convoy formation with minimal escort." Velkorin's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The humans had been expanding into Draknari space for months now, establishing colonies on worlds that rightfully belonged to the Empire. Their technology was primitive, their ships laughably weak, and their understanding of galactic politics non-existent. Today would be the day the Empire reminded the galaxy why the Draknari name was feared across 1,000 worlds. "Excellent. Signal all ships to begin the intercept course. We'll catch them at the junction and make an example that will echo through human space for generations." The Admiral turned to his communications officer. "Prepare a message for transmission to the human fleet. Standard surrender terms. They can choose to submit or be destroyed." As the massive fleet began to move, adjusting course toward the Kepler Junction, something unexpected appeared on the sensor screens. Lieutenant Kyrax, the ship's sensor operator, made a confused chirping sound that caused several officers to turn in his direction. "Admiral," Kyrax called out, his voice uncertain, "I'm detecting an anomalous reading. Single vessel bearing 27 Mark IV. It's not part of the human convoy." Velkorin strode to the sensor station, his heavy footsteps echoing on the metal. "Teresier, show me." The main screen flickered and zoomed in on a section of space that appeared empty to the naked eye. Slowly, the ship's advanced sensors painted the outline of a vessel unlike anything in the galactic databases. It was clearly human in design, but wrong somehow. The hull seemed to shift and bend in ways that defied conventional shipbuilding techniques. Energy readings fluctuated wildly, showing power signatures that shouldn't be possible for a ship of its apparent size. "Run it through the identification protocols," Velkorin ordered. Kyrax worked at his console for several minutes, his claws clicking rapidly across the interface. Finally, he looked up with confusion clear in his large eyes. "Admiral, this vessel doesn't appear in any registry. Not human, not Draknari, not even in the archives of dead civilizations. According to our databases, this ship doesn't exist." Commander Zephyr moved closer to study the readings. Could it be a new human design? Some kind of prototype they've kept secret? "Impossible," Velkorin replied. "Our intelligence network would have detected any significant advancement in human shipbuilding. Their technology is centuries behind. Ours, they barely understand plasma fusion, let alone whatever is powering that vessel." As if responding to their scrutiny, the mysterious ship began to move. It didn't accelerate in the normal fashion, with engine burns and gradual speed increases. Instead, it simply was somewhere else, as if it had skipped the space between 2 points entirely. The movement was so smooth and instantaneous that several officers on the bridge made involuntary sounds of surprise. "Did anyone track that maneuver?" Velkorin demanded. "Negative, sir," reported the navigation officer. One moment it was stationary, the next it had moved approximately 50,000 kilometers. Our instruments show no engine signature, no subspace distortion, no gravitational wake. It's as if the ship simply chose to exist in a different location. The Admiral felt a cold sensation crawling up his spine. In 5 decades of military service, he had never encountered anything that could move through space without leaving some kind of signature. Even the most advanced stealth technology left traces that Draknari sensors could detect. "Attempt to establish communication," he ordered. The communications officer activated the standard first contact protocols, broadcasting on all known frequencies in 17 different languages. The response was immediate, but not what anyone expected. Instead of words or data packets, the mysterious ship transmitted something that could only be described as music. Not alien music, but something hauntingly beautiful that seemed to resonate directly with the consciousness of everyone who heard it. Several crew members stopped their work to listen, their expressions becoming distant and peaceful. The music spoke of vast distances traveled, of loneliness and wonder, of minds reaching across the void to touch something infinite. It lasted only a few seconds, but the effect on the crew was profound. "Cut the transmission," Velcorin snapped, but his own voice carried a tremor of uncertainty. Commander Zephyr was studying her tactical display with growing alarm. "Admiral, the vessel is moving again. It's heading directly for our formation." On the screen, the mysterious ship glided between the massive Draknari warships like a ghost passing through a cemetery. It made no aggressive moves, fired no weapons, but its mere presence seemed to disturb the very fabric of space around it. Ships that had been in perfect formation began to drift slightly, as if the mysterious vessel's passage created invisible currents that pushed them aside. "Battle stations," Velcorin commanded. "All ships prepare to engage unknown vessel. Fire a warning shot across its bow." The dreadnought Thunder of Conquest fired a precisely aimed plasma beam that should have passed meters in front of the mysterious ship. Instead, the energy bolt seemed to bend around the vessel, curving away into empty space like water flowing around a stone. The ship continued its leisurely course through the fleet, completely unaffected. "Sir," reported the weapons officer, "our targeting systems can't get a lock. Every time we try to paint the vessel with our scanners, the readings scatter. It's like trying to grab smoke with our bare hands." Panic began to spread through the fleet as more ships attempted to target the intruder. Plasma beams bent away from their target. Missile guidance systems locked onto empty space. Energy torpedoes passed through the vessel's apparent location without detonating. The most powerful weapons in the galaxy were useless against something that seemed to exist only when it chose to. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her ship, watching the alien fleet's confusion with grim satisfaction. Her vessel, the Wanderer, had been humanity's greatest secret for 2 years now. Built in the hidden shipyards of the Tau Ceti system, it represented a breakthrough in human understanding of consciousness and quantum mechanics that would have seemed like magic even to Earth's greatest scientists. "Dr. Chen," she called to the elderly man working at a console covered in equations that hurt to look at directly. "How are the quantum fields holding?" Dr. Marcus Chen looked up from his work, his weathered face creased with concentration. At 73, he was one of humanity's greatest minds, a physicist who had spent his entire life pushing the boundaries of what was possible. "Stable, Captain. The neural interface is responding perfectly. The ship exists in a quantum state, of probability rather than fixed reality. To those alien sensors, we're everywhere and nowhere at the same time." Elena nodded, though she only partially understood the science behind their impossible vessel. What mattered was that it worked. The Wanderer could travel through space by shifting between quantum states, existing in the spaces between atoms, in the pauses between thoughts. It was more than a ship. It was an extension of human consciousness made manifest in metal and energy. "Captain," called her tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, "the alien fleet is repositioning. They're trying to surround us." Elena smiled. "Let them try. Take us through their formation. Show them what human ingenuity looks like when we're not playing by their rules." The Wanderer moved through the Draknari fleet like a dream moving through a sleeping mind. It passed through the hulls of battleships without leaving so much as a scratch. It emerged from the center of explosions without damage. It danced between energy beams that could cut planets in half, untouched and untouchable. Behind the mysterious vessel, the most powerful fleet in known space began to fall apart. Ships collided as their pilots tried to track an impossible target, weapon systems overloaded as they attempted to lock onto something that existed in 17 different probability states simultaneously. Communications broke down as officers tried to report encounters that defied rational explanation. Admiral Velcorin watched his perfect fleet dissolve into chaos and felt something he had not experienced in 30 years of military service: fear. Not fear of death or defeat, but fear of the unknown. Fear of confronting something that operated by rules he could not understand or predict. "All ships," he transmitted on the fleet-wide channel, his voice steady despite his inner turmoil, "disengage from the unknown vessel, form defensive positions around the flagship." But it was too late. Word of the encounter was already spreading through subspace communications to every corner of the galaxy. The Draknari Empire, terror of 1,000 worlds, had met something they could neither fight nor understand. And that something was human. As the Wanderer completed its passage through the alien fleet and disappeared into the quantum foam between stars, Captain Vasquez allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The first phase of humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage was complete. They were no longer the primitive species that could be conquered and enslaved. They were something new, something impossible, something that would make the galaxy take notice. "Set course for the Kepler Junction," she ordered. "We have a convoy to protect and a reputation to build." The mysterious ship vanished from conventional sensors, leaving behind only questions and fear. Admiral Velcorin stared at the empty space, where the impossible vessel had been, and realized that everything had changed. The galaxy had rules, laws of physics and war that had governed civilization for millennia. But humanity, it seemed, had decided to write their own rules. In the distance, the human convoy continued its peaceful journey toward a new colony world, unaware that they were now under the protection of something that moved like a ghost and struck fear into the hearts of empires. The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The truth unveiled. 3 days after the encounter at Kepler Junction, the galactic communication networks buzzed with reports that defied belief. Admiral Velcorin sat in his private quarters aboard the Sovereign's Wrath, reviewing intelligence reports that painted an impossible picture. The mysterious human vessel had not been an isolated incident. Commander Zephyr entered without waiting for permission, her usually composed demeanor cracked with urgency. "Admiral, you need to see these reports from across the sector. The Zirian Collective encountered the same type of vessel near the Vega system. The Altarian Defense Force reported a similar ship appearing during their assault on the human mining colony at Wolf 359. In every case, massive fleets were forced to retreat." Velcorin's claws traced patterns on his desk as he processed the information. "How many incidents?" 17 confirmed encounters in the past 72 hours. Each time a single unregistered human vessel appears, demonstrates impossible capabilities, and forces our allies to withdraw. The pattern is consistent, Admiral. This isn't random. It's coordinated. The implications were staggering. If humanity possessed multiple ships with these capabilities, everything the Draknari Empire knew about galactic power dynamics had become obsolete overnight. "Have our scientists made any progress analyzing the sensor data from our encounter?" Zephyr's expression darkened. "They're baffled, sir. Chief Science Officer Veltran says the readings violate fundamental laws of physics. According to his analysis, the ship exists in multiple quantum states simultaneously. It's not just invisible or intangible, it's existing in a state of probability that makes it both there and not there at the same time." Dr. Marcus Chen stood in the observation deck of the Wanderer, watching stars streak past as the ship moved through quantum space at velocities that made conventional faster-than-light travel look pedestrian. At his age, he should have been retired, spending his remaining years in peaceful contemplation. Instead, he found himself at the forefront of humanity's greatest leap forward. Captain Vasquez joined him at the viewing port, her reflection ghost-like in the transparent aluminum. "How many more ships are ready for deployment?" 12 are operational, Chen replied, his voice carrying both pride and exhaustion. "Another 20 are in various stages of construction. The neural interface technology is easier to implement than we initially thought. Humans have a natural compatibility with quantum consciousness fields that other species seem to lack. Elena studied the old scientist's face. Despite his excitement about the breakthrough, she could see the weight of responsibility in his eyes. "You're worried about something?" Chen nodded slowly. "We're changing, Elena. Not just our technology, but ourselves. Every time we interface with the quantum fields, we become a little less fixed, more fluid. The crew members who've spent the most time on quantum-capable ships are developing abilities that shouldn't exist." As if summoned by their conversation, Lieutenant Kim approached from the bridge. Elena noticed immediately that Sarah seemed different somehow. Her movements were too fluid, and there were moments when her outline appeared slightly blurred. "Captain," Sarah reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the convoy we protected at Kepler Junction. They've reached New Geneva Colony safely, but they're requesting an explanation for what happened during their journey." Elena exchanged glances with Chen. The civilian convoy had witnessed the encounter with the Draknari fleet, but from their perspective, the massive alien armada had simply changed course and departed without explanation. They had no idea that an invisible protector had been responsible for their safety. "Tell them their escort was more effective than they realized," Elena replied. Across the galaxy, in the halls of the Galactic Senate on Centaurus Prime, an emergency session was taking place. Representatives from 47 different species gathered to discuss what many were calling the human anomaly. The usual political posturing and diplomatic niceties were abandoned in favor of direct, urgent discussion. Senator Qualix of the Uri Draknari Empire addressed the assembly, his translator converting his rumbling speech into the common galactic tongue. "Honored colleagues, we face an unprecedented situation. The human species, which we have long considered technologically primitive, has developed capabilities that render our most advanced fleets ineffective. We must consider how to respond to this new reality." Counselor Vexithara of the Silicon Hegemony rose to speak, her crystalline form catching the light as she moved. "The humans have made no aggressive moves against our territories. These ghost ships appear only when human interests are threatened. Perhaps we should reconsider our policies regarding human expansion." "Absolutely not," declared Admiral Torvin of the Rigel Defense Pact. "If we show weakness now, it will embolize every minor species in the galaxy. The humans must be contained before they become a larger threat." But even as the politicians debated, reports continued to flood in from across the galaxy. Human colonies that had been under siege suddenly found their attackers withdrawing. Human trading vessels that had faced piracy were traveling unmolested through previously dangerous space. The invisible protectors were everywhere, reshaping the balance of power with their mere presence. Captain Elena Vasquez received a priority transmission, while the Wanderer was resupplying at a hidden asteroid base in the Outer Rim. The message came from Admiral Sarah Martinez, commander of Earth's Deep Space Defense Force, and one of the few people who knew the full extent of the quantum ship program. "Elena," Martinez's image said from the communication screen, "we need to discuss the next phase of the operation. The alien coalitions are starting to panic. Intelligence suggests they're considering a massive coordinated strike against Earth itself." Elena felt her stomach tighten. Despite their technological advantages, humanity was still vastly outnumbered. If multiple alien empires united against Earth, even quantum ships might not be enough to protect the homeworld. "How long do we have?" she asked. "Our analysts estimate 6 to 8 weeks before they can assemble a large enough force. We need to accelerate the deployment of the quantum fleet." Dr. Chen, who had been listening from his workstation, looked up with concern. "Admiral, we're already pushing the neural interface technology to its limits. The crews are changing faster than we anticipated. If we deploy too many ships too quickly, we might lose the ability to maintain their humanity." Martinez's expression was grim. "Doctor, if we don't deploy them, we might lose our humanity anyway. Dead species don't get to worry about psychological evolution." As the transmission ended, Elena found herself facing an impossible choice. Deploy the quantum ships and risk losing what made them human, or hold back and risk extinction. It was, a dilemma that would have paralyzed a conventional military force. But humanity had always thrived when faced with impossible odds. "Sarah," she called to Lieutenant Kim, who was reviewing sensor data at a nearby console. "How many crew members are reporting enhanced abilities?" 43% show some form of quantum consciousness expansion, Kim replied. "Most are minor, enhanced spatial awareness, occasional glimpses of alternate probability states. But some of the long-term quantum exposure subjects are demonstrating abilities that border on telepathy." Elena made her decision. "Dr. Chen, prepare the full fleet for deployment. We'll face whatever changes come." 2 weeks later, the largest alien armada in galactic history assembled at the edge of human space. 700 ships from 12 different species, all united by their fear of the unknown. Admiral Velkorin commanded the force from his flagship, but he felt none of the confidence he had possessed before encountering the ghost ship. "All ships report ready," Commander Zephyr announced. "Long-range sensors show minimal human defensive forces. If we strike quickly and overwhelmingly, we might be able to finish this before their phantom ships can respond." Velkorin nodded, but his hearts were heavy with foreboding. "Begin the assault." The massive fleet moved toward Earth like a tide of destruction, but they had traveled less than an hour when the impossible began to happen. Ships started appearing around them, not emerging from hyperspace or decloaking, but simply becoming visible as if they had always been there. Dozens of human vessels, each one radiating the same quantum signature as the ship that had humiliated the Draknari fleet. But something was different about these ships. They didn't just exist in quantum probability states. They seemed to exist in the thoughts and dreams of the crews that operated them. As the alien fleet watched in growing terror, the human vessels began to change shape, becoming expressions of pure will and imagination given physical form. Captain Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Wanderer, but she was no longer entirely human. The months of quantum interface had changed her on a fundamental level. She could feel the thoughts of her crew, sense the fear radiating from the alien armada, and perceive the probability streams that flowed through space like invisible rivers. "All ships," she transmitted to the quantum fleet, "show them what humanity becomes when we refuse to be conquered." The battle that followed couldn't be described using conventional military terminology. The human ships moved through space like thoughts through a dreaming mind, striking from angles that existed in 11 dimensions. They appeared inside enemy vessels, fought battles in the spaces between seconds, and demonstrated that the rules of physics were more like suggestions when consciousness was involved. Within hours, the largest military force ever assembled was in full retreat. Ships that had conquered entire star systems fled in panic from vessels that existed more in imagination than reality. The age of conventional warfare was over, replaced by something that was part battle, part poetry, and part dream. As news of the defeat spread across the galaxy, a new understanding began to emerge. Humanity hadn't just developed advanced technology. They had evolved into something beyond the physical limitations that bound other species. They had become the ghost in the machine of the universe, the consciousness that observed reality into existence. Captain Elena Vasquez, now more probability than person, stood on her bridge and looked out at the stars with eyes that saw beyond the visible spectrum. The galaxy had tried to contain humanity, to keep them in their place among the lesser species. Instead, they had forced humans to transcend their limitations and become something unprecedented. The ghost ships were no longer just protectors of human interests. They had become harbingers of a new age, where consciousness and will were more powerful than any conventional weapon. The universe itself was about to discover what happened when humanity decided to rewrite the fundamental rules of existence. In the depths of space, quantum signatures began appearing around other worlds, other species. The change that had begun with humanity was spreading, consciousness evolving wherever it found minds capable of dreaming beyond the boundaries of what was thought possible. The galaxy was awakening, and nothing would ever be the same.